I made my first ever solo trip to Japan about a month and a half ago. But this wasn't a regular trip. This was my first research slash work trip to explore what it'll take in order for me to make it and thrive as a creative in Japan. I spent 1 week there. Now I'm back in Toronto and I wanted to share all the plans I made, the people I met, the shoots I had, and everything I did in order to start laying the groundwork to make this move. To be totally honest, my original timeline was probably 2 to 3 years in order to make this move. But after this trip, I feel like I'm pretty much ready to go tomorrow. So I did a few things on this trip. I went location scouting. I had 2 shoots. I met up with 2 local photographers, and I also went to a networking event geared towards foreigners that are photographers slash digital creatives. I'll go into more detail about how and why I set these up, as well as what I was able to learn. And I'm hoping that this will give you an idea of what it takes and what you need to do if you're trying to move to a different country while still being creative. So, quick story time, this trip actually started off a little bit rocky. I arrived in Japan late afternoon, but I didn't get to my Airbnb till probably like 8:30 or so. You know how they tell you trains are always on time in Japan? Well, they are. I got a train ticket to bring me from the airport to the station that I need to go to for my Airbnb. And I was going to be the last person to get on the train, and my foot was literally about to step onto the train, and then the door closed on me. I'm not gonna lie, I was so stressed. The train delay, carrying around big luggage. I was also starving. I also already had so many worries shooting in a different country, especially when I don't know the language and in a country like Japan where most people in public don't want to be in anybody's pictures, in anybody's videos, in anyone's frame in general. So my original plan was to go to Shinjuku to explore that area because the 2 couples that I was photographing, they really wanted those night lights in the background. And I was also going to take the train after that to a really specific spot where there's a phone booth and also Tokyo Tower in the background. I only ended up going to Shinjuku because it was already late. I was tired. I said I was hungry already, so it was just too much for me to handle for me to go to 2 different places, especially when the train ride is like an hour and 15 minutes or so apart. So if you've been to Shinjuku recently, then you already kind of know what you're expecting and all the people that are there. But I personally haven't been there since 2015. And according to Google, in 2015, there were 17 million less tourists than there was in 2024. So when I arrived and walked out of the station, I was shocked. I was so stressed. I was thinking, there's so many people everywhere. I have no idea how I'm going to get a clean shot, how I'm going to find a nice area where there's maybe less people. I really wasn't sure. And on top of all the stresses that I already had, this was making me even more stressed. There's so many things that you need to consider when you're location scouting that I won't fully get into it here because it really deserves its own video. Long story short, I basically knew I needed to find a place where it was relatively open with lights in the background and also not too busy. I also walked around and tried to find some nice alleyways where it was really away from crowds with significantly less people. Luckily, I'm pretty used to finding random alleyways because when I'm shooting engagement sessions and couples in Toronto, I'm always downtown and there's a decent amount of people downtown Toronto as well. Obviously not as much as Shinjuku, but there are people, so I'm always looking for little random alleyways where I can just take the couple away and take photos of them there, and it really kind of removes the nerves from the couple before we kind of go into areas that are more public. So here I'll show you some areas that I marked down on Google Maps and some of the photos that came from that area, along with here's this other specific area with the phone booth and Tokyo Tower in the background. This one specifically is pretty popular. It's on a lot of Pinterest boards and stuff like that. Going through these photos, I do recall being really nervous in these moments. I was super in my head about a lot of things while trying to hold a regular conversation with the couple. So some of the things that were going on in my head, this was my first time shooting in Tokyo, and as I mentioned before, people in Japan are not very fond of being in other people's frames, in other people's pictures, in other people's videos, just anything like that. So I kept thinking about making it very obvious and purposefully putting down my camera every time I was about to shoot, but I wasn't ready yet. And when everything was ready and composed, then I would bring up my camera and start shooting. I also hate sticking out in a place where I don't know the language and I don't know the people because Tokyo is literally the biggest city in the world. So I just didn't want to get in anyone's way. I think in summary, I could just say that I just didn't want to be seen as that gaijin. Truthfully, looking at these photos and trying to be objective about it, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. They're not great, but they're not awful. They're okay. But now that I've done it twice in this area, I definitely want to go back again because the next time I go, it will be totally different. as I already know what to expect and how people are and what people are thinking and all that stuff. So I already feel a lot more comfortable going back there and doing it again. And I can't wait for the next time. The scouting and the 2 shoots were on the first 2 nights that I was there. And then the next 2 days, I was lucky enough to meet up with 2 local photographers that were from Tokyo. When I started on this path to become a photographer about 7 years ago, there was one thing that I knew I needed to do immediately, and that was to talk to as many photographers as possible with something like 5+ years of experience on me, just because it's super important to talk to and see the people that are trying to do the thing that you're trying to do and see how they did it and how they made it. Before I became a photographer, I actually was a restaurant manager and I really wanted to open a restaurant when I got older. So in that time, I read a lot of business books, a lot of self-help books, and something that I picked up from that time in my life of just reading this type of stuff was essentially success is a formula. The formula isn't always clear, but if you look at the people that are doing the thing that you want to do and you pick up on their good habits, you work hard, you don't take shortcuts, generally you're going to find success as well. So that's why I decided to meet up with local photographers in Tokyo to understand what they're doing and also what steps they took to get to where they are today. So moving to a new country, I knew that I would essentially be rebuilding from zero. So I dusted off my old Facebook account, which has pretty much been untouched for like the last 5 or 10 years. And I actually went onto an expats in Tokyo Facebook group. And I'm going to give a quick shout out here to a previous wedding client of mine who is also a friend. I won't name her name, but you probably know who you are. He's the one who actually told me to go on Facebook on these expat groups and just ask them for help. Ask them any questions you have because they're generally really responsive and super helpful. This expat group helped me so much. They were the reason that I found couples to photograph. They were the reason I found photographers to talk to. And they were also the reason why I discovered this networking event for photographers and creatives. So the first photographer I talked to, he was born and raised in Tokyo, and he specialized more in commercial work. A few things that actually really stood out to me was that for commercial work, generally businesses or brands or whoever needs the photos, they'll actually go through an agency and the agency will have photographers and they just essentially match photographers up with the business or brand. The pay was about 30 to maybe even sometimes 40% less than what people would make in Toronto in a commercial shoot. But there is a kicker, and that is you don't actually need to find your own jobs. So what he said to me was that typically when the business or brand, they start working with you, they stay loyal to you. They don't try to go find another photographer. They don't go find someone else. They essentially stick with you the entire time. So basically it's really tough to start and get in. But once you're in and you're pretty much good because the income is fairly steady and it's very stable as well. For those of you from North America, and I'm not sure about how it works in other parts of the world, but we need to work really hard to get our clients. Our socials need to look good. We have to have really solid reviews. We need to nail the sales call. Basically, you need a lot of social proof to be even considered for a job. And the business doesn't even always stay loyal to you. There's a lot of times where they don't. They just find another photographer, maybe they went a different direction, maybe the person that hired you left and someone else came in and they used a different photographer. It could be for a myriad of other reasons. The other photographer is from the UK, but currently lives in Tokyo, and she specializes more in foreigners traveling to Japan. Typically couples photos or proposal photos, basically what I want to focus on. And based on what she was telling me, it seems pretty much the same as it is in Toronto. You need to network with photographers, you need to post what you want to get hired for. You got to be active on social media. You have to have your SEO, your marketing, all that stuff in order. Nothing that I haven't done before. I honestly felt so lucky to have these 2 different perspectives because I was able to understand how it works as a local, but I'm also able to understand how someone who lived in a different country moved to Japan and did the same thing. After these 2 conversations, I was so much more confident in making this move and still being a creative. That said, this is only 2 photographers, which is an extremely small sample size. But the next time I go back, 100% I'm going to be talking to a lot more people. Now, for the most exciting part that I had planned on this trip, and this is a photographer / digital creatives meetup geared towards foreigners ran by a group called Artedly. And let me just say, after going to this event and meeting a bunch of people, I am so ready to move to Japan. So as I mentioned, I got recommended this networking event also through the Expats in Tokyo Facebook group. I was lucky enough that this event was happening on my second last day there. And it was so inspiring talking to other foreigners who were also creatives. There were some that I met that were just like me. They haven't moved there yet and they're trying to move to Japan and they're figuring out how to make it work. But there were also a lot that already currently live there. They're already doing their creative work. They're already thriving. They're already making a living. And it was super cool to see both sides of this. One thing that I noticed was that in a room full of creatives in a different country where everyone else is from a different country, that these are probably some of the smartest creatives out there. Because it really takes more than just being good at your craft in order to make a living in a different country, in a different language, still doing the art that you do. And I think because of that, there was just a total different energy in that room. It wasn't like anything I've ever felt before in Toronto or anywhere else. I also got a chance to speak with some people that were also creatives that work for this guided tour company that runs guided tours for foreigners. Talking to them really gave me a good idea of potentially places that I could work at if I need to continue to make money and I don't make enough just being a freelancer. Japan just came out recently that they are trying to double the amount of tourists that they have by 2030. So this could be a huge opportunity for me or any other foreigner that wants to move to Japan, since the tourism industry is such a rapidly growing industry in the next 5 years. The biggest takeaway I got from this was that there's tons of opportunity for you to network and connect with others that are similar, which is super important as a freelancer and a business owner. Tokyo, again, is literally the biggest city in the world, so there should be no shortage of people to meet and places to work. Let me just say that last part is a belief of mine. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just guessing still. All in all, this was a fantastic trip. I feel more ready than ever to make the move. When I got back to Toronto, one of the first things I actually told my wife was that if she wanted to move tomorrow, I'm down. I'm ready. Let's go. That said, the thing I realized on this trip was that I need to work on my videography skills and also my content creation and editing skills. But based on all the possible ways that I could potentially make money that I learned on this trip, learning how to edit videos and also learning videography matched up with my photography skill set, it would make me much more valuable on the job market. This trip is just the start of my journey on figuring out how to make this move. Meeting with other creatives, hearing their stories, and also getting a couple shoots in really gave me a taste of what it'll take for me to make the move to Japan and continue to be creative. And also, as mentioned a little earlier in this video, I do have a separate video coming up that will specifically talk about location scouting and everything that goes on in my head when I'm deciding where I should shoot. So don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and also hit the notification bell because it really helps get more eyes on this video, because I really want to just help inspire other creatives that are thinking about moving to a different country and potentially starting a new life there and still continuing to do the work that they love. Do you have any video ideas? What's one thing that you really would like to know about being a creative in Japan? Or do you have anything that's photography related that you have questions about? Let me know in the comments and I'll explore them in a future video.